I mean, like, how close is too close? Today, I'm going to be sharing my story, which includes PCOS, a ruptured ectopic pregnancy, miscarriage, and motherhood. We're just going to dive right in there. I've officially recorded this, counting this one, 3 times. The first time that I shared this story, I was crying the whole time. And it's not bad to cry, but I feel like as I watched that, I didn't get across the message that I wanted to. The second time, I feel like I explained myself really well, but it wasn't organized. So let's start off with PCOS. When you first get married, some people have the expectation that you should have kids, right away. So they ask, when are you gonna have kids? When are you gonna have kids? I know for some people that's really hard for them, but for me and Justin, it wasn't hard because we had wanted to have children and we were ready. But I will say after 2 years of trying and not being able to get pregnant, my questions were added with theirs. People would say, when are you guys gonna have kids? And I'd be like, yeah, when are we gonna have kids? I'm waiting for them too. They haven't been coming, That's kind of the attitude that I took. That didn't hurt as deeply. I know some of my friends, it's been a really hard thing for them to have people ask them so much. So if you're on the flip side of that, maybe just be a little careful about asking. Okay, so at the end of the 2 years, I was like, okay, maybe I should go see a doctor because we haven't been able to have any kids. And the gynecologist examined me and he's like, oh, you're really hairy. Okay, just kidding. That's not what happened. But I never realized that a symptom of PCOS is being hairy. I think I just want to get it out there because it is something that I really struggle with feeling self-conscious about. I'm always like, my mustache, my beard, I have a lot of hair and it's hard being a woman and being hairy. But it's a side effect of having the PCOS and it's not very fun. I don't like it. Other ones is they'll take a look at your ovaries and they'll see kind of like a ring of cysts, which cysts are normal in your ovaries, but it's a specific look. So they'll be able to see whether or not you have PCOS. It also makes it very difficult to become pregnant, and it all has to do with insulin and how that works in your body. So the interesting thing is that they prescribe something called metformin a lot of times, and it's basically to help with that insulin resistance. It's actually medicine that they give to diabetic patients, from my understanding, but it's to help your insulin be received by your cells. I took the metformin and got pregnant right away. It was the week of Thanksgiving that I found out that I was pregnant, and I was so excited. And then that weekend, I was bleeding. So it was heartbreaking, and I had a miscarriage. I thought it was a miscarriage. I went into the emergency room the weekend of because I was having a pain in my side, right? They took a look, couldn't see anything. They're like, oh, it could be an ectopic pregnancy. They couldn't see anything. So I waited a couple days, went back into the doctor, had my blood levels taken. They had gone down. So they're like, hey, you can come in a week and check your levels again, which is what we recommend, or you can just go home and have this miscarriage. And I was like, I'm just gonna go home and have this miscarriage because I wanna do this myself. I don't wanna have to deal with coming back here to the place of babies. I guess that's how I felt. That month, as I was recovering, I remember having pains in my stomach, and it always happened when we ate these frozen bean burritos. So I thought, it's the bean burritos. It's gotta be these terrible bean burritos. It wasn't the bean burritos, and I'll tell you what it was in a second. One morning I woke up, I had a little teeny prick in my side, and I was like, ooh, that kind of hurts. And so I remember like texting my mother-in-law, texting my husband saying, I kind of hurt here. I don't know what to do. And that pain just increased and increased and increased and increased and increased. And I think it was 3 hours later, I was in so much pain that I just couldn't even think straight. I was home alone. Oh man. And I was ready to just throw in the towel. I was ready to be done with the pain, and I couldn't think of anything to do. Couldn't think of anybody to call. And not that there wasn't somebody I could call, I just was in so much pain I just couldn't think. So luckily, my husband was working in a place where he didn't get cell reception unless he stepped outside. And he had felt impressed to leave his place of work to go read his scriptures outside. What are the chances? I know that God was pushing him along here. So he went outside and got all of my text messages, which was probably like, hey, I'm having a little bit of pain. It's getting worse. I don't know what to do, you know? And so he called me, thank goodness. And he said, I'm coming home right now. He came home, he called the doctor for me. We rushed off to the gynecologist. They took a look at me. They're like, whoa, I think this is ectopic. We need to go to surgery right now. And we did. So I went into surgery, and sure enough, there was a tubal pregnancy, but it had ruptured my fallopian tube. So they had to remove my fallopian tube, clean out a whole lot of blood. Turns out that the pain I had had in my stomach was not the bean burritos. It was actually blood that was coming up, and it would just happen to settle at night. And so I thought it was related to what I was eating, but it was really just internal bleeding. So recovery on that one was really hard. It was very physical. Do you know those chairs that older people use that stand you up completely? Thank goodness we had one of those at the house we were renting, because I could not lay down and I could not stand up, and it probably took me 3 months to be able to stand straight up because I was hunched over. I'm trying to remember the time, but I feel like it was about 3 to 5 months until I felt relatively myself again physically. And it was about that time that the emotional stuff hit. Like, that was a baby, that could have been a baby. I lost that baby. And I just, you know, this is the part in the other ones where I just bawled and bawled, because those emotions are so real. I had so many angels reach out to me at that time, and a lot of it is on my blog, berryfelice.com, if you want to check it out. A lot of people showed up for me, and in hindsight, that's the stuff that stands out to me, is through all of my pain, I know that God was watching out for me, because I felt, not in the moment, but as I reflect back, I can see all of the ways that He was very present. My second miscarriage was in the middle of a school semester. So I just remember my pregnancy was so tiring. I had one class that was at 2 in the afternoon, and I just loved it, but I would like fall asleep unless I had snacks, and I actually had to stand up a few times. I believe I was 8 to 10 weeks along, and we went in for my appointment, and they took a heartbeat, or they tried to check for a heartbeat, and there wasn't one. I remember the doctor pulled out the tissues, and I know that they do it for a good reason, but I think that it was a trigger for me to be like, I'm not gonna cry, I'm fine. Like, we're just gonna go home and process this. You know, I geared myself up, okay, like I'm gonna do this. And I read all the blogs about, you know, how recovery was and what people might say that might offend you. So I was like, okay, I'm ready. And the day that I started having my miscarriage, I don't want to share too much information, so I won't share how it went down at my house. But I will say that I was just gearing up to have a miscarriage, but try to make it as enjoyable as possible. which that plan didn't work out because I got so lightheaded that I almost fainted. So we went to the hospital, and then when I got to the hospital, I fainted and completely out. That one seemed emotionally more hard for me because it was in that moment. So it wasn't like me focusing on recovering my body and just being like, I have to like get better. It was like you see everything and you're going through everything, and you know the whole time that this could have been this, you know. So it was really, really hard. After that miscarriage, I really had a hard time wanting to even try to have kids. I think it was a good 2 years until I was even ready to start trying again because it was so emotionally hard. I had no desire to go through that again. And I remember when I had my third pregnancy, I got to 20 weeks and I posted it on Facebook that I was pregnant, and I just cried. I cried and cried and cried because I kept on thinking this could be like the last one. I could lose this baby. And it's hard. It's hard. But this is why I've recorded this. Things like this are so emotionally draining. They take so much out of you, and that feeling doesn't go away. You know, this is, I don't know, 8 years later, and those emotions still come up inside of me as I tell it, just because I went through that. But as I reflect back, that's when the miracles start coming to me. And this is what I was sharing before, is I read all the blogs about what people will say to try to help, and how like it was like blogs of things people shouldn't say. They're like, if you know somebody that's gone through a miscarriage, you shouldn't say this, you shouldn't say this. And I believe I even wrote one of those myself. But trauma, like going through tragedy, happens in stages. So I think that when you are in the rawness of that, there's anger and resentment. I had all the feelings of like, thank you so much for what you're saying, but you have no idea. You don't even know. And of course, I never said that to somebody's face, but I thought it. And I think that that's okay. It was just part of processing through what I had gone through. And then there's a stage of kind of numbness where I just didn't want to deal with it. And then now I would say I'm in the reflective stage where I look back and I think about what happened. And I wanted to share, and this is why I am even telling you about this. My faith in Jesus Christ has been so crucial to help me. Of all my friends and all my family and all of those who have gone through miscarriages and other similar things, no one could possibly know my experience except for one person, and that is Jesus Christ. And I've felt so strongly to share that with you because he's been a hope for me. So if ever you feel like no one understands, I would encourage you to reach out and find Christ, because he will lift you up as he has done for me. Since those experiences, I have become a mother, and I'm so grateful for that. It is not easy. I have been tested in ways that I never even thought possible. And it has its ups and downs. But one thing that I reflected back on before I even had my boys was how I've been a mother, even before I've had kids. One story in particular that really stood out to me was I lived in a neighborhood and I was helping with the children's program in my church. And this family was moving out of the neighborhood. And so we went to take them breakfast early one morning. And this little girl who was in the group that I'd helped with, I'll never forget, she ran up to me and hugged me and said, "I'm gonna miss you so much." And I was so amazed. I didn't even know this girl's name. And I think that there are so many children in the world who have need for us. And I feel like that is where we come in, that we can fill that place in the life of a child. There's so many things that are in my heart that I want to share that I just can't express well. But I do believe that I was a mother before I was ever a mother. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was helpful to someone. And please know that I do believe nobody can really understand what you go through and what I go through individually, except for Jesus Christ. And so if you're feeling lonely or frustrated at things that people have said to you, I would just encourage you to reach out for him, because he is the Prince of Peace, and he will find a way to bring that peace into your life, whether it's through somebody else or an angel, through angels that come and visit and don't say a thing but just are there for you, or whether it is through something someone says, or whether it's through that feeling in your heart that comes when the Savior's with you. I just love you guys. I hate saying that to a camera, but I love you guys that are watching on the other side, on the flip side. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time.